What's going on? We are live. All right, all right. Give it a little bit here. Let some people come on in. I'm going to get some stuff set up while people are coming in. I was attempting to use the green screen today, as those who are on TikTok or will be on TikTok can see. There's a green screen behind me. Currently, I'm just using the digital background, so I'm going to be eaten up. So let's get some of these going here. And yeah, this is going to be a new show that we're going to do here for MOT. It's going to be the Honest Hour. So we're going to be doing this Monday through Friday, myself, and we're going to be covering, news topics, things that happen during the week or during that day, whatever it is that other places aren't covering. We try to keep you really informed here, keep you ahead of the curve, and try to give you the most honest news we can. So, yeah, we're going to let a few more people come on in, and then we will get started here. For those on TikTok, you can see the green screen behind me. On YouTube and everything, the green screen's actually working. Well, the digital green screen's working. There isn't a digital green screen option on this. So, yeah, but I have some pretty interesting topics. And so we'll get that started here in a second. Here. Right. All right, all right. So we're going to get started here in a couple minutes. Just want to get some time to let more people come on in, and then we'll get started here. I have some pretty interesting topics to cover today. And like I said, this will be a new show that we're going to be adding to the MOT catalog, and it's going to be the Honest Hour. So if you want good, true media, good, true news source, this is the place for you. Just stick around and you will see that. We have some good stuff coming up today, and we also give you some opinions and thoughts that you may not have heard other places. I like to consider myself sort of a thought leader in some regards. I do feel that I have pretty unique ideas in some aspects, and other people do as well. So, yeah, let's. I think we're going to get started now. So, one of the first things that I want to touch on here. So, by the way, the purpose of the show is to cover a lot of the stuff that you will not hear on any other media platform, pretty much. And even the ones that try to cover it, they're not actually able to really cover it very well. So we are going to try and do that here. That's the goal with the Honest Hour. So we're only going to be doing about three articles at most, or 2 or 3 topics at most. So to start off today, we're going to be talking about this right here. I'll pull it up on the screen. Now, I do frequent InfoWars, not because I think they're the best source of information, but they do have a lot of information that is generally hard to find other places. And this is one of those topics. I haven't seen this topic being talked about much elsewhere. And I'm not sure if you guys can see this. Let me see here. Yeah, so you can see it pretty fine. So this is now becoming more mainstream. Those of you who may have been following me for some years now will know that I actually talked about this issue, and it was going on in Australia. So for those that are just listening and can't really see it, it's an article titled Psychologists Say Over Half of Teen Patients Identify as trans. And so there's been a spike since the lockdown, since the the unicorn lockdowns of children, particularly in the UK, being diagnosed as trans or identifying rather as transgender. And this is unprecedented, the amount of people or children rather that are going through this. Now, this we'll jump into some of the what's actually going on here, but just to go over this article a little bit. So this is a quote from, it looks like, the Daily Mail, and it was stating that, quote, she is currently seeing a dozen, probably referring to the psychologist in this regard, seeing a dozen families and has helped almost 40 over the past year, but has never before encountered so many young patients identifying as trans. In many cases, she said, youngsters now coming to see her with mental anguish or suicidal thoughts had been allowed to transition from one gender to another at a young age, sometimes even at 5 or 6. So, I mean, what we're seeing right here, being able to change your gender, so to speak, um, that's just purely child abuse, especially, at 5 or 6 years old. The child doesn't know anything. Anyway, the unidentified psychologist based in southern England has said that often parents often don't correlate the mental problems with gender dysphoria, or what most people would call these days transgenderism. And it says, quote, the parents would be telling me about their teenager, about their mental anguish, suicidal thoughts and self-harm, and then they'd drop something in so casually that I almost think I'd miss it. Oh, and he's a trans boy or girl, transitioned when he or she was 5 or 6 or 7. But that's all fine, she wrote in the online article. So the big issue here is we are basically witnessing like grooming on a large scale, right? This was what a lot of people, a lot of conservatives, a lot of Republicans, and I'm not saying I'm a Republican or a conservative. I definitely lean more right in a lot of my political views. However, I'm not saying that they're completely right in everything. But in this particular instance, the horn that they were blowing when the LGBTQ movement first started with the homosexual marriage, the gay marriage, whatever you want to call it, and how it would lead to potential grooming is coming to fruition. We're seeing this right here because we have a problem over in the UK, and it's definitely taking place in the United States, and it is most certainly taking place across the Western world. And the reason, we're seeing this in part has to do with social influence, so peer pressure. And then you're also seeing the fact that teachers, like there's a subreddit. I don't have the subreddit here, but there's a subreddit that actually has teachers discussing with other teachers on how they can help children who they believe, that's the key word, who they believe are transgender or want to transition, but haven't actually come to the realization that they are transgender yet. You see that? They haven't even these children aren't even identifying as transgender, not even acting transgender or whatever that is, right? They simply wore a hoodie. They wore a black hoodie and had their hood up. And the teacher in that subreddit was talking about ways that she could help this student go through their transition because she suspects and believes that they're transgender. And so what we're seeing here is just mass grooming taking place on our young in society. And this is truly disturbing. And another reason why you should be homeschooling your children, you shouldn't be letting them go into the public school system, because the public school system actually has the highest sexual assault rate by the teachers and authority figures than the Catholic Church, right? Everybody wants to talk about the Catholic Church being filled with, groomers, pedophiles, etc. But nobody wants to talk about the fact that the public school system statistically has more of those in them. And now we're seeing this trend where children are wanting to be transgender, and it has a lot to do with the fact that their teachers are so brainwashed that they're going along and attempting to push them into that direction. Their students, their peers rather, are being inundated with nothing but influencers who are supporting these movements, right? And so they then become influenced to ride that wave, thinking it's the cool thing to do. We've all done that in our high school years. We've all went through our phases, right? A very common one that you see across TikTok or something along that or another social media rather is the emo phase, right? The goth phase, the emo phase. And I never went through that phase myself. I did go through a little, I used to rap. So I was really enamored by hip hop culture. So I, had my little stint of, trying to be a true hip hopper in all the ways. So I went through my little phase in that regard. And now what we're seeing are children going through that phase, but with sexuality, which is truly disturbing. And it is some brave new world type stuff. Everybody talks about 1984 and how we're getting so close to this dystopian world where the governments are watching all of our moves. And there is some evidence with that now with, it's actually been going on for quite some time with the Patriot Act. And now the CDC, a document has been released that the CDC has been spying on the citizens to make sure that they were following all the protocols during the lockdowns. And Canada has actually just revealed the same thing. Anyway, I digress. But what we're actually heading is not so much in 1984, but it's actually going to be a blend of 1984 and Brave New World. One of the main things in Brave New World that we see take place is this: children are encouraged to have adult interactions. We'll call them that. I don't know how much I can really say in that context without being censored or something. But children are encouraged to have adult interactions with other children at an extremely young age. We're talking like 2 years old, 3 years old. So sexuality is pretty much everywhere, and it's running rampant at all age groups. Also in Brave New World, you are not allowed to have one single partner. Your partner has to be shared by everybody. And so then that does away with the potential of having a family, with having a unit, anything like that that is very natural for humans. And it also defeminizes men because you can no longer stake claim in a woman. That may sound degrading and misogynistic by today's standards, but it's a very natural thing for a man to want to lay claim to a woman because men are conquerors. Men want to lay claim to something. We take pride in owning something, in being a part of something, and leading something. Every man is a leader in their own right, in some way, shape, or form. And one of the basic ways that men lead are in their family. And so, if you do away with the family, then you do away with male leadership all entirely, which is being chipped away with slowly and slowly and slowly. Humans need is nature. I totally agree with that. Humans do need nature. This is one of the key things that is missing in our society today. And thank you for commenting that, and Michelle Hardy. I appreciate that. Make sure you guys hit the like button on TikTok. It helps more people see this if you guys hit the like button. And anyway, so yes, humans do need more nature, and this is a huge, huge thing that we're seeing right now. A huge movement is smart cities and transhumanism, and also the metaverse. Which, don't get confused. I know this is a little off topic here, but it's kind of together, and that is the metaverse. Really quick on a quick side note, we are in the metaverse right now, guys. You guys are watching me through the metaverse. I'm interacting with everybody that's on live here through the metaverse. So don't get it twisted and think it's just like some pie in the sky idea. You can make it very simple. Obviously, it's going to advance with time. Anyway, so what we're seeing here is, I think, a true detachment from nature, but that's been a long road, right? It just didn't happen overnight. It just didn't happen 10 years ago. It just didn't happen 5 years ago. This is something that's been going on for a long time. One of the things that I feel most people are unaware of is the fact that the industrial revolution is what had begun to tear families apart and lead us to where we currently are. Many years, exactly, many years. And the way the industrial revolution started to tear families apart, which would allow us into this fragile state where children are now increasing, um, increasingly becoming transgender. And I will show you here in a second that there are actually doctors in Australia, in the UK, in America, all over the world who are stating, well, we cannot throw out the idea that the reason that there's a rise in transgenderism and amongst children is because of social influence. So a lot of these professionals are actually saying that the reason we're seeing this rise is because of social influence. And it has a lot to do with the fact that there was a lockdown period, right? Where everybody and their mother were on their laptops, devices more than ever. And then the children are exposed more than ever to predatory individuals on these network services that claim to be good, but they're not good. So it's terrible. So much confusion is being created. Exactly. So much confusion is being created. It is socially constructed. No joke. You're 100% right. That's 100% right. Now, where I was getting at with the families being torn apart, like how we actually got to this point, it's from the Industrial Revolution. So before the Industrial Revolution, pretty much we were an agricultural society. And I'm not saying the agricultural society is the way to go, although it is closer to nature than what we currently have. Although you can experience being close to nature in the society that we live in and enjoy all the amenities that we have as well, I do think that there is room for that. Anyway, so what we had encouraged during that time where we were making that transition from the agricultural society into an industrial society is the um, abandonment of family. So the younger generations were enticed to go into the cities, and the parents of those younger generations encouraged them to go out to the cities as well in some instances because they thought that there would be a better opportunity. They thought that the life on the farm, they deserved better than just the life on the farm. They deserved to go in the big cities and try to make it big. And so they were encouraged to go out to the cities where they were making way less than they would have made it on the farms. And they were struggling to eat what they didn't really struggle to eat when you were on the farms. Mind you, yes, you had to do hard work to produce crops. You could have a poor season, but it wasn't like you were going to starve. Breakdown of the family unit, it's really sad. Exactly. And so what I'm getting at here is everybody focuses on the nuclear family and the breakdown of the family unit, but you have to understand in order to break down the nuclear family, you have to first break down the extended family. And so that was the main thing with the Industrial Revolution. It tore apart the extended family, it detached you, it ripped away that connection from your ancestry, and ripped away your connection from history. Anybody that I've spoken to who knows their family history in depth is either very wealthy or they come from a very educated family. Most people I know don't know their family. They don't know their great grandparents, right? They barely know their grandparents nowadays. And that's because of how society is, you know, um, creating us to be. But this all started from the Industrial Revolution. You see, it's quite odd that, and another big issue that we have here too is that children are interacting only, I think we're supposed to live in village style. I agree with that. I think you're supposed to live in tribes. I think that that's the most natural thing for humans is to be tribal, which is a word that gets thrown around a lot nowadays in our political atmosphere. And it is demonized because they say tribalism is bad. Tribalism is the most natural way to live your life. 100%. It's a connection. Exactly. So, um, you know, one big issue that I feel that children have these days, which is why they're going astray, is one, the parents are so detached from home, right? So there's a few problems here. The parents are so detached from home because they're in this mindset that they have to work these many hours in order to sustain a wonderful lifestyle. right? And that just isn't true because a lot of the reasons people are working so hard is simply to preserve their materialistic lifestyle. It isn't to preserve their livelihood to make sure they have food on the table, right? So that's one huge thing. And I think another problem today too is the fact that, yeah, who designed a 40-hour work week? I don't know. And I don't think that work's bad. I'm not one of those people to say work is bad. I think work is a natural thing and work is a good thing. I think it's a very natural and good thing. But if you look at natural societies, you'll see that they don't work nearly as much as we do. Although I don't know that it's true. I don't know that it's true. The reason I say that is because they have to work a lot harder because they have to be more self. They're more self sufficient, which means they have true freedom. Right? They have a sense of true freedom. But the issue that we have with our work is that so many find it purposeless. Right? They find no purpose in their work. Right? How many people go into a job nowadays where they're like, I'm just pressing buttons for this multi-billion-dollar corporation. I'm sending paperwork around. I'm doing no real value to society other than generating income, and then I'm, increasing the GDP by my production of this non-tangible good. Right? So many people are in that category, and that's a huge reason as to why people feel depressed. I believe, and this is a huge reason why you see, let's see, because most jobs are someone else's purpose. Exactly. And I don't think that it's like, I'm not against it. Like, I'm a business owner myself. I have a couple businesses. So this is one of the businesses, right? MOT Media. And I have a cleaning company. And, I think that if you want to be an entrepreneurial, if you have a business, that's a good thing. But I do think people should understand as well that there are better ways to generate money and have a more fulfilling life than to simply think that you have to work your BS job if you think it's a BS job and you find it depressing. So the whole point of that tangent there was to basically say that the parents are detached from their families and their kids because they're chasing a dollar all the time. That's one huge issue. The other huge issue for children is the fact that they don't have strong male role models in their life. A lot of the men in their life are still playing video games. They don't want to grow up. They are scared to have children. They are scared to do anything, right? They're scared of failure. They're scared of judgment of other men, and we just see and what's proposed or what's presented to us as a strong man is somebody who has a grill, who drinks a beer, who also is watching sports every Sunday or every day. That's the portrait of a strong man in our society. And they're also really burned out. No single mothers are having to work full time. Yeah, 100%, 100%. A lot of people are burned out. That is so true. So, particularly though, the fathers, the men in our society are dwindling. And we saw that during the whole unicorn, which is what we call here at MOT. Um, the unicorn stands for that word that thou shall not be named, but that gives you the alleged coughs and sniffles that the whole world was shut down for like 2 years. Right. So during the unicorn, you saw who the real men were and who weren't. Um, how many men wore masks when they knew that it was insane? How many men caved to yeah, the big C, there you go. How many men caved to the nonsense? A whole bunch, a whole bunch, a whole bunch. Pretty much every man around me did. I don't know one man that stood tall with me. I was the only man I know that refused to put on a mask and would get away with it. Being serious. That whole 2 years, I can tell you how many times I wore a mask. That's good that your father did. I wore a mask probably a couple of times, in the hospital because our daughters were born during that period, and they were very strict. And my wife was just recovering, and so there were a couple times where it was easier for me to just walk in, cave for a second, and then take my mask off as soon as I got away from everybody, and never put it back on, leaving or walking anywhere else in it. So yes, I do admit that there were times, particularly in the hospital, but anywhere else that we went, I never wore a mask. My wife never wore a mask. We stood strong and against it, but a lot of men did not. A lot of men were weak, which is why it got so far. Which is why we lost so many of our rights, so to speak, is because people weren't willing to stand up and claim those rights. I have an immunocompromised daughter, so I did because without facts, I had to be safe. I can respect that. I can respect that. You know, there was a time where my wife and I were a little more concerned about the potential of the unicorn before it even hit America or even I think Europe. I think when it was still in China, we were like, man, maybe we should be doing something like China's doing to help prevent this. And then by the time they got to the US, we saw through the entire facade, and yeah, it was insane. But anyway, or a little bit after, but anyway, so that's a huge issue too with children is that they have no strong male role models these days. And then another huge issue is that now that I believe, not that I believed it completely, but I couldn't take a chance with their life. I totally get that. I totally respect that. Nobody can put you at fault for doing that for your daughter. I mean that's the most sane thing to do if you don't know what's going on, and nobody can fault you for that. There's a lot of fear mongering that goes on, so nobody can fault you for that. So those are some of the main issues there inside the nuclear family, right? So parents are dividing their time between work and child, and they're usually giving more of their time to work and people that they don't care for. And then you have weak men because of video games, encouraged to grill, drink, watch sports, and be lazy, pretty much. And also, society portrays this picture that don't apologize. I like your commentary. It's adding to the conversation. Feel free to keep adding to the conversation. I would not be commenting back to you if I didn't feel the need to or I didn't enjoy your input. So don't feel that way. Thank you very much for the interaction. Anybody else that feels like interacting, please do so. Um, so yeah, you have the weak men of society, um, and that's where I was getting at. So you also have this social construct that's been implanted in everybody's minds because of TV that dads are weak, men are stupid, women can do everything that a man can do and better, which then renders a man unnecessary. And so you just see this degradation of men across society. So those are really big things. Yes, total loss of the men step up. Yep. And then you go to the nuclear family. So the children these days, they don't have older people, like actual older people to communicate with, like a 70-year-old, a 60-year-old, to talk with about life. They're just caught up in their bubble, their peer group, and their peer group doesn't have any freaking experience. And this is also why you see the suicide rate. This is a huge reason why you see suicide rate amongst teenagers and young children going up. It has to do a lot with what I just said about the detachment of the family, both extended and nuclear, and also the drugs that they're being pumped up with and all the jabs that they're getting. Because every single jab, it doesn't matter what, every single one, horrible, bad for you, horrible and bad for you. Do what you want, though. I'm not a doctor, but just know every single one. The unicorn one just really woke a lot of people up to the jabs. If you really want to go down the rabbit hole, you can go down the rabbit hole. But yeah, so all these drugs that we're pumping up children with definitely have an effect on their mind and their diet as well. So the American diet has now been, proven to cause autoimmune diseases. And one big thing that people are confused about is vegetables and carbs and sugar, those things right there are very horrible for you. Vegetables are indigestible. That's why a lot of them have fiber because you can't digest it. And fiber is indigestible, but people are confused about that. And anyway, so children are pumped up with these drugs, given the food pyramid to eat, and they have no discipline in their life. And so they then are becoming suicidal, lost, depressed, falling into this transgenderism narrative, falling into this LGBTQ narrative. And then they have no older people to talk to that actually have life experience on top of not having parents, right? So they don't have a 50, 60, 70-year-old to be like, hey, I'm having a really bad day as a 13-year-old because somebody said this to me. They don't have somebody that's like 70 years old to be like, hey, I don't remember what somebody said to me when I was 20 years old that made me feel really bad. And I'm 70 right now. That should say a whole lot. I've been dealing with the rabbit holes. The weakest of the people are leading our child instead of the strong. Yeah, 100%. Well, I don't know. I do think that the strong people are leading their children. The weak people are letting the predators do it, which is normal. Not my kids. They eat natural. We are true carnivores. There you go. There you go. Um, yeah, I work as a nurse at the juvenile detention center. They're also broken. Yeah, it's sad. It's very sad. They are. And, I mean, there's only, I don't know. It's just sad. It's a very sad thing. And it makes you wonder as to what the current what the condition of our society will be as these children get older and become adults, right? They start becoming the leaders of tomorrow. That's something that we really have to consider, especially when you have the documents that are coming out now that said that putting anything over your child's face is not. The CDC has to push back milestones because of development issues now because of what they did during the lockdowns and all the regulations. So the CDC is pushing back milestones because of the rules that they implemented. It is so damaging on children. It's so damaging in many other ways. This is something that I was talking about 2 years ago. Before I didn't need anybody with a half a brain could have seen that this would have long-term psychological effects on their children had they been awake to what was going on. So yeah, that's a huge issue, right? So children are increasingly becoming transgender, and it has a lot to do with the social pressure, social media, influencers, etc. Now, I do want to switch it up a little bit here. There are a couple more topics, two more topics that I wanted to touch on. They're wishy-washy and they should be in control. Okay. Yeah, I think you meant to say they shouldn't. Yeah, and the other thing is the CDC, if I'm not mistaken, is a private organization. A private organization that works with the government. So, all right, let's see here. I have another topic here that I wanted to touch on. So, let me share it for everybody. So, I can't share it to TikTok because TikTok doesn't hook up to StreamYard. So, I'll have to read it out like I did the last one. So, here we go. So, the FDA chief claims misinformation is leading cause of death in the United States. So during an appearance on CNN, FDA chief Dr. Robert Califf, I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name, asserted that the leading cause of death in the United States is online misinformation, which is very convenient, being that the Department of Homeland Security just started a misinformation governance board. All right, so he says yes, really. And then he says that, so spoke about his remarks during an interview with CNN's Pamela Brown, which were originally made at a health conference in Texas last month, when he said online misinformation was now our leading cause of death, unquote. They are the misinformation, 100%. And the crazy thing, the most ironic thing regarding this whole topic, especially with him saying that, He specializes in, I think he's a cardiologist, or he specializes in cardiology, which, if you just look at a recent study that came out that Israel did, they linked heart problems to the jabs. Okay. Anyway, so they're basically stating that there was nothing to like actually back this up, but misinformation is causing a lot of death in the United States because, well, people don't know what to do with their health. People are being told to not get a jab when they should be getting told to get one, apparently, allegedly. Um, and he's just talking about the fact that the United States has a 5 year shorter life expectancy than other wealthy nations. And he's also attributing this to a lot to misinformation, when in reality, it has to do with the American diet is total garbage. And I'm not trying to sit on, my high horse and criticize anybody who eats like crap, because I definitely don't eat the greatest. I try to eat lots of raw meat, try to eat a lot of raw meat, which is the most natural thing to eat as humans, in my opinion. In my opinion, I'm not saying anybody else should do it. Do your own research. In my opinion, these aren't natural substances. They're 100%. They're not. They're not. And so, one of the big issues here, why America has such a short life expectancy, is one, our doctors are. I don't know how much I can say in here without getting banned. The leading cause of death, the third leading cause of death in America, is in the medical industry. It's caused by the medical industry. Medical professionals will say, which is huge. And then you also have the fact that doctors are not allowed to help you fix your diet. So you have to go to a nutritionist, or you have to specifically ask your doctor. And a lot of the times they don't know anything about nutrition. I'm not saying that I'm an expert in nutrition or anything, but that's a huge thing. It is totally is a garbage diet, but what feeds the creation of this diet? Yeah, exactly. Exactly. A fun fact that most people are unaware of is that the first case of heart disease, I believe, in the United States was in the 1900s. The 1900s. The 1900s. When we started introducing wheat, carbs, sugar on a mass scale. They're so protective. They are to prescribe you meds to combat their diseases. Yeah, these diseases, 100%. 100%. It's a total racket. And this guy right here, the actual FDA chief, he has like millions of dollars in pharmaceutical company stocks. Millions of dollars. He was also the head of the medical center for Alphabet Incorporation, which is the company that owns Google, YouTube, all these places. And so he's the one that's parroting this narrative here that misinformation is one of the leading causes of death in America. And it's totally insane. But this is all because they're building this narrative of domestic terrorism. They're building this narrative to begin to ostracize on a social level extremists. When you just had Joe Biden say everybody that supports Trump is one of the most extreme people in the country, right? Land was produced to assist the heart damage. Yeah, so Biden just said that MAGA supporters are the most extreme political group in U.S. history. Lord. Oh, yeah. Um. So, Biden just said that. And so the reason that relates to this is because who's spewing the misinformation? Obviously, it isn't the left, right? Obviously, and I'm not saying the right's perfect either, because they're definitely not. I don't agree with a lot of what Trump did. I mean, let's not forget, Trump is the man who started Operation Warp Speed. Let's not forget that. If you don't know what Operation Warp Speed is, look into it. He's the one who implemented it. He's the one who brags about knowing Johnson and Johnson's owners. He's the one that brags about all this stuff. All presidents are puppets. All presidents are puppets. Trump was no exception to that. He just he had a little more autonomy. Who trusts government? I'm not saying that government's bad, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't trust your government. I think it's healthy to have suspicions of your government and to be on your toes. But the government does serve a good purpose. You will always have a government. Anarchy is dumb. Libertarianism is dumb. You will always have a government. I trust true governing. Yeah, and I think that it really starts with, what you do at home, because that trickles out to society. It's a network effect, 100% network effect. That's why we have the government that we do have, is because of the way our families are on a large scale. So we can't just blame the government. We agree to it. Okay, so basically, a government is a creation of a group of people's. It's basically a gathering of imaginations amongst people. That's what a government is. They decide, hey, we want a referee to make sure that people operate within this framework. That's what we'll call the government. And so, as society degrades, your government also too degrades. Like communism just doesn't come about because you have one evil ruler. No, it comes about because the people want it. Over time, people slowly and slowly, it's not something that happens overnight either. People slowly and slowly become more and more dependent on the government and on corporations, right? It's supposed to be for the true truth. It completely degrades. Heartfelt people respect the government. Yeah, there's definitely good people in the government, like for sure. I know people that are in the government, and I think that they do well. I think they want to do well. I think they mean well. But over time, things begin to erode. And that's what we're seeing with our government now. And I think that the only way that they can somewhat prevent balkanization is through something like communism. I'm not saying that I agree with it, because I do think the United States will probably balkanize at some point. Yeah, I mean, it's a good thing and a bad thing, right? Because the good thing about that is you can build anew. So that's good. The bad thing about it is there's a lot of carnage that comes with a breakdown. So you can be on the right side of it, which is what we're hoping to, talk about here, prepare people for here. Because I think one of the best things that people can do during a time like this is to simply localize your supply chain. Straight up, localize your supply chain is one of the easiest things you can do. I'm trying to respond correctly, but I'm also, yeah, you're good. So, you got to localize your supply chain is one of the huge things, because the more dependent you are on the system that's breaking down, the more you'll be affected by it. Now, I don't know that anybody can be completely off of the system. I don't. But you can become less and less affected by it if you become more self-reliant. And that can be by taking very little steps too. It doesn't have to go like full off-grid, self-sustaining lifestyle. It doesn't have to be that. You can do that. It might be ideal for you to do that. I don't know. But it's very simple. I mean, you can just start off with helping out a local farmer, right? That's something I do. Every Sunday, I go to one of the local farmers and I help them do some chores. In exchange, we get free raw milk. We also have a share through them as well, but we also get 2 gallons of free raw milk. And on occasions, we've gotten pounds of free meat, like probably a couple pounds of butter as well, right? And so, but it's tough compared to the easy life. Yeah, that's good. It is, and it is tough. It is a tough lifestyle to choose, right? That's why I'm saying that you don't have to go full throttle either. But just know the less dependent you become on the system, you can even be somebody who doesn't necessarily produces any food, right? But you could just work for them. You could also, it is very fulfilling. But or you could also have your own job, have your own business, whatever it is, then use your money, use your capital to then get things and support your local farmers, support your farmers markets, etc. Right? So that's one really big thing that you can do as we're entering this time, which this all came from the fact that we see this rampant narrative of extremism plaguing the United States. And the FDA chief just stated that the leading cause of death in the United States, one of the leading causes of death in the United States, is online misinformation. And misinformation is coming from who? The domestic terrorists. And who are the domestic terrorists? They're obviously MAGA supporters because Joe Biden just said that the MAGA supporters are the most extreme group in America, in American history, I should say. That's what he said. So the reason I believe that's all happening is because they're trying to maintain control over a fragmenting society. And we'll see how it works. But this is why I encourage an MOT. Everybody at MOT pretty much encourages people to become more self sufficient. Now, in regards to what we were just talking about, communism, control, all this stuff, right? And how really the people bring about communism, not some evil leader, and it's a slow erosion to it. Governor Ron DeSantis just did something very interesting today. And I know a lot of people got upset at me last time I made this comment, but he's gearing up for a presidential run. He is. And I'm not saying that I'd vote for him. I don't vote for any presidents because it's useless, in my opinion. But yeah, this was pretty interesting. So I'll play the video. Hopefully, you guys on TikTok can hear it too.
Today, I am signing HB 395, which will officially designate November 7th as Victims of Communism Day to honor the more than 100 million people who have fallen victim to communist regimes across the world. Today, I am signing.
So that's that. So I don't know if you guys could hear that on TikTok, but he is now making a official Victim of Communism Day. Obviously, this is a really good marketing tool, right? Because a lot of right wingers are fearful of communism. When I think what's actually taking place is fascism, right? Because fascism is where the private corporations and the government work together very closely, right? They're still two separate things, but they work together very closely, and the government basically runs them. Whereas communism, there is, in theory, no private ownership. But there's a huge misconception with communism, and a lot of people don't do their research on history. If you look at the Soviet Union, this is also why we encourage to localize your supply chains, guys, be self-sufficient as possible, because in the Soviet Union, you were allowed to have your own plot of land to grow food on. Bet you didn't know that. Bet you did not know that. Most people don't know that. Right? So a lot of these places that had these totalitarian regimes and these community farms, and they took over everything, you actually still had the right to private property in communism. Yeah. Yeah. Pretty crazy. I know. I know. Nobody tells you that in school. None of these right wingers will tell you that. That's not me trying to be you know, a communist sympathetic or anything like that. But yeah, like there's a lot of things that people don't tell you. But anyway, so what we're seeing here is fascism as opposed to communism, I believe, because private corp. I mean, look at the CDC. The CDC is a private corporation that's essentially run by the government. Same with the IRS. The IRS is a private organization. The Federal Reserve is a private organization. It's insane. So Yeah, that's what he did today, I believe. And so I think that, like I said, I think it's a marketing tool. I think it's going to help him run for president. Um, who knows? Maybe he won't do it in 2024. Maybe he'll do it in 2028. But I wouldn't be surprised if he ran in 2024. But that would fragment the Republican Party because Trump is going to run in 2024. So we saw what happened the last time something like this happened, which was during Theodore Roosevelt, or it was Woodrow Wilson's presidency. Not Woodrow, I'm sorry. William Howard Taft's presidency. Theodore Roosevelt was like, yo, William Howard Taft, you're my boy. I like you. I want you to be president after me, so I'm going to endorse you. Because Theodore Roosevelt said that he would only serve one term as president. He later regretted that. After he saw how William Howard did as president, he was like, nah, I don't like it. So I'm going to start my own political party called the Bull Moose Party. Started the Bull Moose Party, fragmented the Republican Party entirely, allowing for Woodrow Wilson to win the presidency. And so I think that that might happen again if we have a Republican like Ron DeSantis going against Trump. I could be wrong, but we do definitely see a new Republican Party after Trump. I don't think that it's a better Republican Party. I don't. I think that they're better marketers now when they know what the people want to hear, but that doesn't mean they're going to listen. They just know how to get voters riled up. Just like everybody loves to criticize the Democrats on how they only care about black communities during election season. Republicans only care about working class, middle class people during election season. Right? I mean, you just had Mike Gibbs, who was running for Ohio senator, or the United States senator for Ohio. He didn't win. J.D. Vance won, which we called here. We called here on MOT that J.D. Vance would win that anyway, because we're based in Ohio. MOT Media is based in Ohio. Anyway, so Mike Gibbons, a Republican, said that he doesn't think middle class people pay their fair share of taxes. That middle class income people should have a raise on taxes, should have their taxes raised. Insane. So, completely insane. Anyways, guys, that is all I have today for the show. Thank you all for joining on the very first The Honest Hour with Luis Acevedo. I am the founder of MOT Media. I am the host. I'm a co-host on MOT Today, which we do every Sunday at noon. And and then we do TikToks every day. You can see TikToks here every day. We're going to be, spreading this more out on social media as much as we can. But we grew really fast, really big on TikTok. We do have the MOT Today channel on TikTok, which has almost 40,000 followers. But we are using this TikTok page because we have so many strikes against our channel on the other one. We're trying to play it safe. We don't want it to completely taken away. So we are now trying to grow up this channel even more. That way we have multiple platforms. That's the goal. So, guys, thank you again. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for coming to the show. And I will be doing this Monday through Friday at about 10 p.m. every night, Eastern Standard Time. So, all right, guys, much love. Peace.